This restaurant car presents us with such a delightful array of cakes and fancies.
And what better place to enjoy an episode of Joyride? I'm very excited today because we have a tremendously talented guest, one of the noted, most fantastic photographers of her generation. A great portraitist, but a great photographer of many different subjects indeed, and a wonderful person in many elements. I'm delighted to say that it is Mary McCartney.
Yes!
Yay!
Hail Mary.
That was very lovely. Thank you, Jools.
We were talking about records, weren't we?
We were
Vinyl records.
That's right. They have a huge increase in people having vinyl records.
Yeah.
I've been buying a lot of 78s.
But see, my son, my 12-year-old has become obsessed with vinyl, and then my niece and nephew similar age, so it's like the 12, 13 teenagers, and they don't want to buy all the second-hand stuff. They want to buy like Tyler the Creator or Caesar or
So they won't want my 78s.
At this point, so I'm trying to find, I'm sure there's like an app or a website that sells second-hand new stuff as well.
I'm sure there must be. I'll tell you about the 78s though. I just because talking about journeys, it's not all about that. But Charlie Watts told me, just drop a name there, but he told me go to Tuchler Records in Vienna, because in Vienna for some reason they have an obsession with boogie woogie, and they do it with great precision. So I went to Tuchler Records on the edge of Vienna. Fantastic record shop with thousands of records, anything you want, all the best records that actually your children wouldn't want because it's not Tyler and all of that. And then I said, Charlie sent me and said, you've got 78s. And they said, yes, come with us. And the grandsons ran now. And when their grandfather ran it, when they stopped making 78s, he said, well, I'm not selling them cheap. And so he just kept them. And so in the special room upstairs, you go out the back of the shop, it's like the sort of place where people would have hidden in the Second World War, round this corridor where you can hear your footsteps echoing, and you go in this room, you open the curtains, like in Miss Havisham's room, walls of blues, boogie woogie, rhythm and blues 78s from the 40s and 50s.
But like in mint condition.
Perfect condition, yeah. And I mean, it's just loads of them, and it's like, whoa.
Did your heart explode
my
with
heart
joy?
Exploded. I collapsed, actually.
Do you get a good feeling when you play them, though?
Yeah.
Beyond good.
When you put the needle on
Yes.
that, it's just like...
But the thing is, it's important to play them on a good quality system.
Yeah.
You mustn't play them on a wind-up one with a big needle. You've got to play them on a good quality system through big speakers and an amp. And suddenly you hear all this stuff you never even heard before.
And do you have to change the needle specifically for the 78?
Yes, but on a modern deck. What do you listen to music at home on?
Well, I listen on Sonos, but when I'm at home and I'm cooking, I'm a big fan of a playlist, and I kind of do love Apple Music and the fact that I can just go onto my phone and just put together a playlist or...
What's your favourite? You've written a number of wonderful cookbooks, but if you're at home just cooking for yourself or your family, what's your signature dish?
Well, now I'm always kind of developing recipes because I've done a cooking show on Discovery Plus, so for that I actually need to sort of come up with new recipes, and I'm always kind of coming up with ideas that, because it's not aimed at vegetarians or vegans, it's more people that are meat reducers, sort of trying to entice them over. So I sort of put some music on, start cooking and sort of inventing, not really cooking the same thing all the time. But I'm loving pies. I like things with gravy.
Love a pie.
I like sort of big elaborate salads. My kind of American side, because Mum was American, it's sort of got to have everything in it.
But I'd like to have a pie and an elaborate salad on the side. Where would you be on that?
I love pies. When I was in Australia, there's pie shops everywhere.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Have you been to Australia?
Yeah. I put on like
the land down
14 pounds when I was in Australia. I put on so much weight because the food tastes so good.
Because it's pie shops everywhere on every corner. Have you been there?
I have.
Have you seen all the pie shops?
Do you know, the thing that struck me in Australia was the extraordinary geological wonders and the landscape. It wasn't the pies, but I'll take your word for it.
For me, it was the pie shops. And it looked to me like it was like 1950s Kansas, but with a Cockney pie shop on every corner.
But then I'm also a really big fan of a soup and a sandwich.
Yeah.
Yes,
Soup
that's
and,
very
I
nice.
know you
Well,
like sandwiches.
I
We've
do
eaten
like-
sandwiches.
I do-
Cheese and pickle sandwich.
Cheese and pickles. I like a cucumber.
I love sandwiches.
I like an uninterfered with sandwich.
Yeah. When I was a kid, one of my favourite sandwiches was tomato with sugar on it in a sandwich.
Yeah.
Does that sound unusual?
It does sound unusual, but I'm not judging you at all.
Well, you
I
should
like
try
a
it.
mayonnaise and tomato
Oh, lovely.
sandwich
That's nice.
with little silver skin onions stuck in.
I think a
Ooh,
lot
I
of
like
the things like
Oh,
that.
hang on. Can I just go back to that tomato, mayonnaise, and silver? I like that
Silver
now.
skin
I was
onions.
experimenting with sandwiches, and one that my favourite that I came up with: white bread, Granny Smith apple, and mayonnaise.
Yeah. So you like a bit of sweet and savoury.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah.
it. Doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean,
Thinly
I would
sliced.
try it. It probably wouldn't be my favourite, but I would happily eat it with you.
But you're very broad-minded.
I would like that. I'm obsessed with the Hellmann's vegan mayo at the moment. I'm a bit of a mayonnaise
I would like.
addict.
I like a bit of mayonnaise, but the trouble is, I think it's addictive. Once you start, you cannot. I'd have just
So
mayonnaise on toast.
I
is
use
nice.
mayonnaise as my base for any sandwich instead of butter. It's like, again, to my American side, because Mum was a New Yorker, we grew up on those deli sandwiches. So I'm like mayo, mustard, lettuce, I'll stack it up.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I'm really
Well,
not
where-
afraid of a condiment in a sandwich.
Where do we stand, out of interest? This is a little bit controversial. Grated cheese.
No.
No.
How can you judge him when you've just said you like apple and mayonnaise?
It's just I can't see any point in having grated cheese
I
in a
agree.
sandwich, especially if you're driving. And I know you're not supposed to
It's
drive and
really
eat sandwiches,
messy.
are you?
No,
But it just all falls out.
you're
You know,
not supposed to-
It wouldn't be my choice, but I mean, who are we to judge? If someone wants to grate their cheese,
Yeah.
then they should be allowed to.
Yeah,
But we're not going to do it, right?
But I think we're not being invited. I think we're being given a sandwich which we bought in the motorway cafe, and we haven't asked them to grate the cheese, but they've grated it.
They've made
uninvited.
If I was having a cheese and onion sandwich, I'd want a slab of cheese and a sliced onion, the whole thing, because I like a lot of onion. And forget all that. There's no need to grate.
No,
No,
that's
no.
actually quite hardcore.
You are one of the world's noted photographers now. Quite hard to follow in the footsteps of a parent, because your mother was a very famous photographer, but you have done with great success photographed lots of the great things in the world. Had some wonderful books,
Including you.
Yes, exactly. I thought that was one of the greatest things. But when you're travelling, because this is partly what this is about, are you always ready to take a photograph at at the drop of a hat if you see something going on out the window?
Yeah, I need to always have some way of taking a picture. But that, as you say, Mum was a photographer and she always had a camera with her. So, yeah, when I was driving here today, I was looking out the window, noticing different buildings, different shops, people. I'm a big people watcher.
I like pictures taken out of the window of a car.
Mum did a book called Roadworks, which was all like
I've seen
loads,
it, yeah.
and that was
that's
a lot
great.
of
And you
that.
get the good reflections on the windscreen.
That's when I realised how amazing a photographer she was, because she just made it look very easy. And then when I became a photographer, I was like, I'm actually going to do it. And she gave me a camera, a little Leica R, and Dad would drive. We'd be in, a lot of road trips up to Scotland or Liverpool as kids. And Mum would see something, take a picture, done. Whereas I'd go to take a picture and I'd be like, Dad, can you slow down? Could you turn back? It's like, no, we just go forward. We don't slow down. And literally I was like, how Mum got all of those pictures so beautifully.
But
I
also,
had full appreciation.
But you told me once what she said the key to it was being in the right place at the right time as well. And also, when you take a photograph, which is interesting, is you're not really aware that you're being photographed. So the subject, for instance, if it were us, we wouldn't notice. Mary might be taking a photograph of us now. She appears to be just sitting there with her arms folded. But actually, this portrait will appear in the National Portrait Gallery tomorrow of you and I.
Or it may be in that ring you're wearing. Do you know what? A fella did that to me on a train once, and he had a ring which was a camera.
What?
And he was, I could say, what's he doing with his hand?
Are you
and he
serious?
Yeah, and he was taking pictures. It was like a spy camera.
Yeah.
Taking a picture of me with his ring.
And how do you know
did
this?
you-
Because I saw, it was quite obvious once. I thought, what's he doing with his hand? And then I looked at the ring and I could see him taking a picture.
Wow. I mean, there's two sort of types of photography I do. One is to have a camera with me and be looking for moments. So, like, my archive is full of collecting pictures and images that then I can go back and reflect on. And then the others are more I'm coming to take a portrait and it's more set up. But all of it, as you were sort of touching on with Mum, and also my style, is to sort of keep it quite laid back and not kind of come in and make it a big process. It's really about collaborating, and it's about connecting with someone, I think.
And it being painless, because I remember there being, which is always painless and pleasant.
I do feel like a torturer sometimes.
No,
sometimes I do apologise to people.
There used to be an old press photographer called Joe Bangy. He was a perfectly nice fellow. I don't know if he's still around, but he used to take photographs of me and Paul Yates when we were doing the Tube, and he'd always say, "Right, quick one, big smiles, no, okay, chest in," and he'd be endlessly bellowing instructions, hand here, and then at the end, and then he'd start saying, "Okay, now got them there, got some great stuff there. Right, now let's do some wacky ones for the kids." I never knew quite what wacky ones for the kids was, but it was quite, by the end of it, you felt quite exhausted and battered by the whole experience.
That's the local photographer.
Yeah, exactly. With Mary, with her covert ways, you wouldn't even know you've been photographed.
And that's when you know you're in the presence of a good photographer. I used to have a Leica M6.
Yeah.
Do you use one of those?
I do. I use the R Leica more, which is not the kind of cool one, but because my mum gave me one, that's the one I'm used to. But the M series is really brilliant. Great. I used to love They're beautiful.
What I used to take a lot of photographs of and then blow them up really big. It's quite horrific, this, of dog dirts. I'd be out with the kids and there'd be a dog shit and they'd go, "Oh, look out." And then because we ended up constantly having them pointed at and looking at them, I thought they took on particular shapes. And especially if someone had stood in it. I got one of them that looked like Christ because someone had stood in it and took photographs of them and blew them up. And I had an exhibition.
So what, a morphic dog shit is what you're saying?
Yeah, because,
Black and white or colour?
No, these were colour. And you'd get all manner of hues and things that you shouldn't really examine too closely.
I do remember seeing a dog poo in the street in London, and it was so huge, and it looked like a Mr. Whippy, the way it had been done. If I'd known you were doing that project, I would have phoned you and I would have protected it until you arrived.
Those days are long gone now.
I wonder if anybody else has taken the same trouble
honestly, this is not making me feel good, this conversation.
To do shit photography.
It's like making me... Thinking about dog poo is not good.
When we were on tour once, I got a Polaroid camera.
Love Polaroid.
And everywhere we went on tour, if I saw a bridge, I would take a photograph of it. And like you said, like through the window of a car. So a lot of them are quite blurred. And I was looking through a box of them the other day, and I must have about 200 of them.
With the advent of in the last sort of 10, 15 years of the cameras on mobile phones, and of course it means everybody's got a camera with them at all times. Do you think that's made people better photographers, or do they not really think about it, do you think?
I think that it's made people be able to take photographs a lot more, so I like that. It's much more accessible. I think because of it, there's a lot more photographs that you don't necessarily need in the world, but you can take a better picture because you can look at it and compose it. And whereas with film, you wouldn't know until you get the film back, which is kind of what part of the joy was sort of that. I still shoot on film and I shoot on my phone, but the thing is, on my phone I had this project that I really liked, which I did on Instagram, called #someone. So like when I'm wandering around, if I see someone interesting, I'll take a picture of them on that and then upload it into Instagram. And I saw this woman in the park, and it just sort of happened spontaneously and became a project.
The woman in the park, you took a picture. She was just a woman you didn't know.
It was a woman who had long blonde flowing hair, and I was in the park walking my dog, and that David Bowie song "Long Blonde Hair and Eyes of Blue" came in, and I sort of took a picture of her from behind with her hair blowing in the wind, and I just uploaded it.
Have you ever taken a picture like in Blow Up and there's something horrific going on in the background?
Or something, or maybe not horrific, but something of interest.
Well, there was a murder going on in the background of that.
Yeah, no, I haven't, but I do I have blown things up, like when I look at things on a little contact sheet and then I blow it up 6 foot for an exhibition.
And there's a spectre,
and then you
a ghost.
Suddenly notice things, or maybe I would have thought it was like a reflection in the mirror in the window, but maybe it's a ghost.
But it's not. It's someone looking through the window.
Jim knows much more about ghosts than all of us because he's experienced one that looked like an egg once. But
which is always brought up.
Yes, but if the point is, with ghosts, can they be caught on camera? In other words, does the camera capture them where the human eye doesn't see them?
Well, what I have noticed is if you take a picture of someone that say I'm taking a picture of you and we're out in a park, there's always somebody in the background looking at the camera. always someone there staring at you.
Is it the same person?
It's always the same person.
This ghost
they an
that
egg?
follows you.
Going back to journeys and vehicles and everything, if we might for a moment, I mean, just as part of it, because you've travelled a lot because your mother was American when you were small and everything like that, and your father
They'd be on
tour.
tour a lot as well. And then for my job as well, you kind of get commissions to travel.
Do you enjoy travelling?
I love going on adventures, but I actually can go on an adventure quite close to home. I do enjoy travelling, but I don't like flying. So I sometimes will try and talk myself out of trips, and then when I get there, I'm really happy that I'm there. I love trains. I love my new electric car.
What do you
listening to loud music in the car, and I like bicycles.
Oh yeah.
How far can you go in your electric car?
I can go. Well, it says 250 miles, but I reckon it's more
And
like.
do you have to find an electricity point?
Yeah. Because I live in London, it's pretty easy, but I think going on a road trip is going to be challenging.
What happens if you run out, I suppose? Do you get someone with a long plug?
Really
a long extension lead?
You can actually get a plug it into a socket. But no, actually, I have to say, I'm absolutely loving it. But yeah, I like travelling. I love trains. I love trains.
What's your
Train's my favourite way. Like if I've got a photo shoot somewhere, I'll look to see if I can get the train first, because also it's just more relaxing.
What's your favourite
And I don't
train?
like, could you, how many times have you been in a car with kids where you're like stuck in traffic on a motorway or something? It's just like when you're on the train speeding past people, you can
They're
go,
very
you can go to the
romantic,
cafe, you can sort of send them to another carriage,
send them
get
off
them
to
away
go and-
from you.
Yeah. Go and get a Twix.
sit on the driver's lap, which is what I like to do.
Has that happened?
A few occasions.
Do you go and see the train driver? Or no?
If
I've never
I'm
seen
allowed,
the driver.
No, but I've made friends with a number of train drivers,
Yeah.
and I have been in the cab, and it's very exciting, if I may say
Yeah.
so. It's really one of the best experiences ever.
Have you been on a train? Not the high-speed trains in Japan, the local trains in Japan. Anyone been?
See,
on
I haven't done much sort of exotic travel on trains. I would like to do that. I'd like to do Russia. I'd love to do Japan.
In Japan, you sit at the right at the front, and you can see the driver is behind a glass window, and you can see him, and he wears white gloves.
Oh, wow.
And he points at everything. He's sitting on his own, and he points at everything. He points at a little clock, and then he points at the signal out of the window, and points at everything, just so he knows what he's doing, and everything's on time.
No, I think a train there's something also very the pulse of a train, and the fact that you're going through these strange places and you're seeing these little stations and worlds.
Places you really wouldn't see
That's
otherwise.
right.
But I do. I love a train.
Another mode of transport that I believe you sort of use sometimes is the horse.
Oh, the horse is my favourite. It's, yeah.
Where would your
Again,
favourite
it's sort of
horse
like
journey be?
collaborative. It physically changes your perspective and your mood, and it allows you to look at everything, and you kind of feel the motion of the horse, and also it really kind of allows you to look more at nature as well, which is something
And
like what flowers are out. You can sort of go on real adventures on a horse.
Have you ever leapt
cross-country.
over a person on a horse?
I have in the old days, yeah, because me and Stella kind of grew up learning to ride together. So I learnt to ride by the way of sort of getting on a pony, riding off on it, being kicked off, and having to walk home. So then next time I'd kind of learn to sort of hold on with my legs more. So it's sort of I feel like that's how I learned to sort of like, I don't want to be kicked off and have to walk home. So also it's really interesting. I've learned it more watching other people learn to ride. It's really about facing your own anxieties as well, and kind of, if you're scared, a horse will notice it. Like if you don't know what you're doing and you want to get off, probably with you, if you're anxious, the horse would absolutely tell. Whereas if you get on, and even if you feel a bit cautious, you kind of be like, no, we're going to do this, I'm going to connect, we're going to bond. It's a whole different story.
There's a field next to where I live, and all of a sudden there's about 50 miniature Shetland ponies, which are about, I don't know, 3 foot high.
Yeah.
What's the point of them?
They are, and they might be called Felabellas. They can pull little carriages, but they're actually just cute to have around.
Pulling a little carriage a bit. Now, why
But
don't
no,
we...
they're actually better just to have around. Like you could get one and put it in your garden, and it'll eat the grass for you. And they're just cute and lovely. It's like getting a big dog.
My wife wanted to get some of those ponies in a field with, which the other thing you can get is giant rabbits.
Why have you not done this already? Why are we talking about she wants to do this like it
Have you put your foot down again?
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't. It just seemed like quite
Giant
a lot to...
rabbits and miniature horses.
next to each other. But if Mary's right, and they would pull carriages...
We have two little fella bellas, and I have to say they don't do anything except just wander around the stable, and they're just the cutest thing. And their energy is just brilliant. They'll cheer you up.
Well, I
They'll
suppose
make
that's
you
a
happy.
good thing, yeah.
That's the only, you don't need them for
So
any
you
other
wouldn't use
reason.
them for ploughing or...
No, but I'm actually doing an interesting personal project. I was watching Country File, and they had a segment about the last working shire horses in London, and I googled it and I contacted them, and I've been going there, and they have 11 shire horses, which are an endangered breed. There are apparently less of them than there are pandas. And they do ploughing.
And they're in London?
They're in London.
Draying.
The first thing I went to, you would have loved, we went to Hampton Court Palace in January. They get all the horses sort of groomed and put ribbons in their mane, and they walk them across Hampton Court Park to Hampton Court Palace, and they're blessed. And then they walk them back.
When you said they're working in London, what are they doing? They're cab driving?
They are ploughing. I followed them to Hyde Park, and they were preparing the ground to plant wildflower seeds.
Nice.
And they do horse rides, and they work with people to sort of, for horse therapy. And also, I think they're even going to do a traditional kind of taking beer casks.
Because they do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Is it Young's
but they're
Brewery still
really
have
beautiful horses, and they're really loved, and the people working there, it's like a really beautiful place. It's like there's a real bond between them. Because sometimes people are like, why would you do this to these horses? But actually, some of them come from a shire horse rescue place. So it's like it's opened up a whole new area that I'd never...
I quite like the idea of those dray horses bringing their barrels of beer. A friend of mine whose father had a pub in the 1940s said that the draymen used to come around in lorries, the ones but I mean, I think it's much better that they were the ones that used horses, but the ones that came in lorries, they would be big, tough sort of fellows with their flat caps and leather aprons and all of that, and collarless white shirts rolled up with their large arms, chucking the barrels in. Yeah. But he said in each pub they'd have a pint.
Oh,
and then get back in the lorry and drive on.
Yeah,
and by the end of it, they'd have had
driving.
like 16, 17 pints a day.
But you know what's nice about the shire horses, is that it sort of really takes you back to a pace of life.
Yes.
That is maybe not how it's done now.
And it wouldn't matter.
So it's kind of nice to sort of bring the speed down.
Exactly, bring the speed down. And it wouldn't matter, is my point, if the drayman was...
because the horse is clever enough to be like, oh, that
drunk.
idiot.
It doesn't matter, because he just didn't know where he was going anyway. Well, I think I'd like to see London. Also, you see, if you had dray horses, they're quite big, but these miniature horses, these miniature horses that we're discussing, be perfect for, instead of having electric cars, if everybody had carriages
back to London.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be I'd love the sound of that.
Environmentally friendly.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd have to really look after them though.
Yeah, well, of course.
And love them.
Well, we'd love them, and they'd be bringing our deliveries.
What, the horses?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to keep elephants.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah, I used to, one of my first jobs was to work in the circus and repair the elephants' fezzes after they'd been in with the lion.
Was it really?
No. And here, a message from our sponsors.
When you walk into a room, you appear to be surrounded by a tranquil haze, a shimmering mist of gossamer like countenance. What's your secret?
My secret? Chiffon, the most romantic of all fabrics.
Have you tried an electric bike?
I have not.
Do you cycle?
I do cycle. I like cycling.
I like it. I like cycling around. I have tried. Electric bike is remarkable because you get to a hill and it's like the giant hand of God comes behind you and pushes you up the hill.
Oh, that would be heaven, because really I learnt to cycle in like when we grew up down in the countryside, and I hate hills because I didn't have my driving licence to get anywhere. You had to cycle, and it's just so uphill, downhill, uphill. So I would love an electric. Mm-hmm. But I don't like cycling in London anymore.
No, because of the dangers.
And that's where the
Did you ever make we used to call them go-karts when I was a kid. You'd get a bit of an old pram and maybe some wood planks and things like that, and then make a little cart. Did you do that?
Yes, I did. And then a neighbour made one that was so clever, it was practically sort of an F1 car. and it put us off after that. But it was quite good. You have a bit of rope.
Intimidated.
A little rope to drive it.
All that. Did you do that, Mary?
I didn't do that. What I did, was probably my equivalent, was we got these, again, my more American side coming out. We begged our mum and dad for Hot Wheels, which were like low on the ground. It was a very manufactured item. Making wise, it would be more camps and things. I probably wouldn't make transport for myself, because then I was on the pony, so I'd jump on a pony, go build a camp.
Or you could have made a cart to go around on the back.
Yeah.
I'd
probably be decorating
my
them.
friend made an articulated one. We spent all of the summer holidays making it, and on the final week we'd finished it, took it out for a test run, and some big kids came and stole it off us and smashed it up and threw it over the cliffs of a quarry.
That's
it was devastating.
That is actually very devastating.
Yeah,
but also it's making me think about how, because we didn't grow up with iPads and things like that, how we would just go and spend a whole summer doing one thing like that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
building a den the whole summer.
I mean, I don't want to show my age, but playing on bomb sites, anybody, or is it just me?
I still do.
No, but there were bomb sites around here, I mean, in the sort of 60s, and marvellous, and you could sort of hide in them, and there would be... Sometimes you got odd people living there.
What, in the bomb sites?
In the ruins, yeah. Who weren't related in any way to the bombings or anything like that. They were just sort of...
living in
I think the thing that is interesting about this is that it's that feeling of, again, that adventure of like going somewhere, and now you aren't really allowed onto sites and sort of to go.
No, that's right. You can't go anywhere.
Mooching around.
You can't
go
anywhere.
So it's sort of like what we're talking about is how amazing it felt to just go off and be like, what's that? I'm going to like build a den around it, or it's going to become a contraption.
I discovered a bomb on the land that I lived on.
That's right, yeah.
Did I tell you this?
Yes.
Unexploded or exploded?
Unexploded. And they brought round a lorry, put it in the back and blew it up.
That's quite scary, isn't it? Had you been living there for a while thinking, what if someone
it's all over Kent, there's billions of bombs scattered around everywhere, I suppose.
Oh, I did love a metal detector growing up.
Yeah.
Metal detectors were really good. That was like, I'm going to find something amazing.
Did you discover anything worthwhile?
No, it's just always little bits of ceramics and things. I would have loved to have found like an old sort of Roman gold ring. I
had a metal detector. When I started digging, it's fantastic. I found our own septic tank.
Your own?
Yeah, yes, exactly. That was quite an excitement.
The last one I've had a few in my time, but the last one I took the kids out with it and didn't discover anything. So I started throwing down 10p's so they would find something.
That's a good idea.
And I got very excited by that, but I never found anything worthwhile. I found... no, I didn't actually find this. I just had this made recently. I got a name bracelet. You know those cheap, thick gold name bracelets?
Yeah.
And I got...
When you say cheap, was that one you gave me the other day?
Yeah.
And on it says, Henry VIII, King of the English.
I love it.
And
you're going to chuck it down for somebody to find.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm going to throw that down there
and
somewhere, and then wait until someone finds it. So look, Henry VIII, King of the English. This was probably his.
Yeah, exactly. He must have had this.
If I throw
You'll
it down
see it
in
on
Greenwich
a BBC
Park,
programme somewhere.
Then it'll get put in a museum. I'll take it to the British Museum.
Yeah.
So I found this with a metal detector. It was probably given to Henry VIII by Anne Boleyn.
Somebody did dig up in a field next to us, which was really good, a sheep spell from the 14th century, and then he rang it, because you could ring it. Just
and all the sheep from the 14th century turned up.
Well, exactly, but it was hearing the sound of the 14th century.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you want?
Did you hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You could hear the jangling of it. And you thought, well, that's exactly what somebody, some sort of person, when the English language was just being born even, you know.
People didn't speak what you would recognise.
It was Middle English.
So did it have the clacker in it?
It had a jangler in it. It had a little chimer in it.
What's it called? It's got a specific name, a clacker or something, isn't it?
Well, it was the hammer that touches the bell.
Yeah.
I like clacker.
Yeah, clacker sounds quite good.
The hammer that touches the bell. That's a good name for a film.
Yeah,
that's
the hammer that touches the bell.
Well, thank you so much for your attendance and your kind words. Mary McCartney.
Thank you, Mary McCartney.
Well, there goes Mary, travelling back to her domain on a tiny, tiny horse.
a tiny, tiny horse with an enormous talent.
This podcast was produced and edited by Molly Stewart.
Sound engineers were James Stewart and George Latham.